Hey there, fight fans! Welcome back to Takedown MMA. In today's video, we'll tell you why Daniel Cormier is reluctant to call Jon Jones the GOAT. Khabib's offer resurfaces after Ciryl Gane gets mauled. Sean O'Malley says Francis Ngannou made the biggest mistake of his life by leaving UFC. Nick Diaz wants to fight Israel, Adesanya, and Alex Pereira. But before we get started, smash the subscribe button and hit the little bell icon next to it so you get notified the next time we upload a video. After a triumphant return to fighting, Jon Jones is being regarded as the undisputed GOAT of mixed martial arts by almost everyone but Daniel Cormier. Jones made a spectacular return to the UFC's famed Octagon after a 3-year layoff to fight Ciryl Gane at UFC 285 for the heavyweight title vacated by Francis Ngannou in January. It took the New York native only 2 minutes and 4 seconds to become a 2-division champ. Having defeated the best fighters of his generation for more than a decade at light heavyweight, Jones's heavyweight title victory comes as the icing on the cake as far as his GOAT status is concerned. But Jones's history with failed drug tests is something Cormier isn't willing to forget, especially when he was a victim of it. In their rematch at UFC 214 in 2017, Jones stopped Cormier with a brutal head kick in the 3rd round, but days later he tested positive for turnable metabolite and was subsequently stripped of his title with their fight ruled a no contest. Jones also tested positive for estrogen blockers after defeating Ovint St. Preux in an interim light heavyweight title fight prior to his fight against Cormier. In both cases, an independent arbitrator concluded that Jones didn't knowingly cheat. Yet Cormier is not willing to give him a pass.
I think it's hard to really argue the greatest of all time when Jones has now gone up to heavyweight and won the championship because of what he did at light heavyweight. This always puts me in a tough position, right? Because I will always say guys that have bad things attached to their name should not be held on high. And I think especially with the drugs and the steroid failures and those types of things. I think when you have those things, it's hard to call you the greatest of all time. And I know Anderson and all those guys, but I think he's in the conversation. Even because he's become a heavyweight champion. Now he's won belts at 2 weight classes.
Interestingly, USADA updated its rules in 2019, according to which Jones's prior samples wouldn't have been flagged as illegal because they were under the current threshold of 0.1 nanograms per milliliter for long-term metabolite in oral Turnabol. Of course, Jones can't change the past, but he still feels a sense of vindication because of it.
USADA has changed some of the rules regarding picogram levels and what's allowed, and I've come to find out that all my findings were under the new legal limit, meaning that I would have been cleared from every test I've ever taken, and that means a lot to me. I'm grateful to be the athlete who fought the system, who could afford the lawyers and the scientists to prove my innocence.
Since their first light heavyweight fight in 2015, Jones and Cormier have been fierce rivals, and even after DC's retirement, they have been verbally attacking each other on and off. After Jones submitted Gane at UFC 285, many fans, aka body language experts, speculated that DC looked upset. One fan even asked Jones about it on Twitter, and this is what he had to say. "My man couldn't even pretend to smile. It was pretty funny." Asking what happened, an experienced former champion, an analyst suddenly not being able to identify a guillotine. We wonder what Jones will have to say once he finds out that Cormier doesn't think he's the GOAT. Ciryl Gane was left heartbroken after being dispatched in a little over 2 minutes by Jon Jones at UFC 285. It was the biggest moment of the Frenchman's life, and he failed miserably, particularly due to his subpar wrestling skills. It isn't the first time Gane has been dominated in wrestling, however. Francis Ngannou slammed him all over the octagon in their heavyweight title fight at UFC 270 in 2022. A few days after that fight, Khabib Nurmagomedov asked Gane to join his team of wrestlers in Dagestan because the Russian thought that Gane needed to improve his wrestling if he wanted to become a champion.
Ciryl Gane, come to Dagestan, bro. Come to Dagestan. You have to come Dagestan, stay there 1.5, 2 years, learn about wrestling, because he's still young for heavyweight. How many? Like 30 years, something like he's young, right? Like you have to come Dagestan, stay there, learn how to wrestle, learn how to defend, because France Where's France? Where's wrestling? It's too different, you know, it's like big difference. You have to come Dagestan teach because we have a lot of heavyweights who can wrestle with him.
Instead of himself going to Dagestan, Gane brought a couple Dagestani wrestlers to the Fight Factory in Paris after losing to Ngannou. And he was pretty confident about his wrestling defense heading into his fight against Jones at UFC 285.
A lot of people talk about the wrestling game of Francis, but it was more the power.
Okay.
It was more about the power, but we did some mistake against Francis, so that's why after this fight we did a really great work at the gym, and now we are really confident of that.
Needless to say, Gane's claim didn't age well. The Frenchman is easily the best striker in the heavyweight division, but now that Ngannou and Jones have exposed the chinks in his armor, others are going to exploit his weaknesses as well. To prevent that from happening, Bon Gamin has to improve his wrestling like his life depends on it. And for that reason, a trip to Dagestan won't be a bad idea. Sean O'Malley believes Francis Ngannou made the biggest mistake of his life by parting ways with the UFC. Ngannou turned down a whopping $8 million offer made by the UFC, which would also have made him the highest paid heavyweight in the promotion's history. 9 out of 10 fighters on the UFC roster would have accepted the deal in a heartbeat, but the baddest man on the planet still wanted more, plus a few add-ons like sponsorship rights and fighter insurance. The UFC, of course, wasn't going to give him all of that, but it doesn't really matter since the Cameroonian thinks he can make $8 million and more in the world of boxing. But will he still attract interest from top-drawer boxers now that he's no longer the UFC's heavyweight champion? O'Malley doesn't think so.
Francis, and I said it since day one, since he started talking to the UFC on Twitter, it's going to be the biggest mistake of his life, because now, I think this is Chael Sonnen's kind of original idea. I'm like, dude, and he's right. Tyson Fury's not interested in Francis Ngannou anymore. He was interested in Francis when he was the UFC champ. He was the pound for pound baddest, or the baddest. Now he's not signed to the UFC. Now it's not as intriguing. Who is Francis? Francis is, it's eventually going to be like, well, he hasn't fought in 2 years. That fight's going to be not as interesting.
O'Malley is a company man through and through, and his jabs at Ngannou are not surprising for that reason. The reality, however, is different from what Sugar Sean believes. Within a day of parting ways with the UFC, Francis Ngannou had his first boxing offer.
Francis Ngannou, I know you're out of contract with the UFC. You want to earn some big boy money? Come see the Gypsy King, and let's do a big fight for the baddest MF on the planet. And let's kick it up spicy in a cage, 4-ounce gloves, under Queensberry, and let's have a badass referee like Iron Mike Tyson. Whoa, did I just sell that to the world?
Ngannou was also called out by Dylan White and Deontay Wilder, so his demand in the boxing world is pretty high, contrary to what O'Malley said. And if all goes well, we're going to see a clash for the ages between Ngannou and Fury or Wilder down the road. Do you agree with Sean O'Malley that Francis Ngannou made the biggest mistake of his life by parting ways with the UFC? Give us your thoughts in the comments section below. Nick Diaz is ready to rock and roll and wants to make his return against the best fighters in the UFC middleweight division, including champion Alex Pereira and Ciryl Adesanya. Nearly 7 years removed from the octagon, Diaz received a hero's reception when he fought Robbie Lawler in his comeback fight at UFC 266 in 2021, but he failed to deliver. The Stockton native was relentless in the first round, but he was a bit out of shape and his cardio just wasn't there. In the first minute of the third round, Lawler busted Diaz's nose with a right hook, and the latter decided to stay down and take no more, allowing his opponent to win by TKO. Diaz's fans were definitely disappointed, but they also urged him to stay retired because he doesn't have it in him anymore. In the last 2 years, however, Diaz revealed that he has made improvements to his game, and he's ready to lock horns with the likes of Adesanya and Pereira, who will battle each other in a middleweight title rematch at UFC 287.
I'm asking to fight as soon as possible.
As soon as you can?
Yeah.
You're the man.
Yeah, not Jon Jones though.
But you want like an Izzy or Pereira at 185?
Yeah.
You want Izzy?
Something like that. Yeah, that's fine,
You want the champ at middleweight?
I always want to fight the best,
Last year, when Nick Diaz challenged the then UFC welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman, to a super fight, Dana White was quick to turn down the possibility of it happening.
I need to look out for Nick and make sure that Nick doesn't get hurt.
Dana's answer will be the same if you ask him about a fight between Diaz and Adesanya or Pereira. In his prime, maybe Nick would have given both of these middleweight phenoms a run for their money, but at this point in time, a fight doesn't even make sense. With that, we have come to the end of our video. If you enjoyed our content, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button so you stay up to date with all the latest happenings in the world of MMA. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.